disclaimer. The views of the guest and even the host sometimes are not necessarily the views of the Work With Me podcast and Ruse advisors.
Welcome.
Work. The interview. Preparing for the interview. Picking your final candidate. Going over the offer. On-board training. Being let go. All things work-related from the employee and employer side are fair game here at the Work With Me podcast. Interact with us at workwithmepodcast.com. Email us at bob@ruseadvisors.com or Larindy at ruseadvisors.com. Your tough boss is Larindy Ruse. Your slacking employee is Bob Stei. And the fun starts now. Hello, how are you, everybody? The Work With Me podcast, KKNH, where classic rock lives, and TinkRadio.com. Obviously, I'm Bob Stei. Larindy Ruse will be with us soon. I want to thank our guest from our last podcast. That was a lot of fun. That was Abby Friedman from Friedman Productions in New York. Abby can really throw you the best event ever. What a fun conversation. We talked about everything from MSNBC, her time there in ESPN, to her favorite sports teams and throwing events. So give Abby a call, and you can check her out at freemanproductions.com. Now, since we are the Work With Me podcast, we get to the nitty-gritty about the workforce, and today we're going to do that. TerryLynn Smith, who was a career coach with Giraffes Consulting, before she did this, she was in HR many years. And if you listen to the opening of the show like today, I've been in trouble with HR many years, so I've got some great questions for her. And you know why we do this show? Because we love it. And you know how we do this show? You know why we do this show? Because we love it. And you know how we do this show? From great sponsors like Divine Design with Elisa French. I've been working with her for a while now, and I, believe it or not, you might not know this from the way I do this show, I'm a lot calmer than I used to be. There's a lot of garbage in my head. You know, I used to tell people I have more issues than Life magazine, but she's dealing with that. She actually helps people by getting into their mind, getting out the junk, you know, pretty much going through the past and letting it be the past and moving on and having the best future ever. So many of you right now are just in a different state of mind because of everything going on. I'll make a deal with you. Call her up right now or text her. She'll give you a free hour consultation on me. Free. 509-638-4329. 509-638-4329. Tell her you heard about it on the Work With Me podcast. So, TerryLynn Smith is coming up in a few minutes. You're listening to the Work With Me podcast on Work With Me podcast 1023 HD2 KKNH, where classic rock lives, and TinkRadio.com. And now here's the part of the show where I share. Now, since TerryLynn is coming in, we're going to talk about getting fired, bad interviews, things like that. Despite what I might show at the beginning of the show, I honestly have not been fired as many times as you might think. And to be honest, I went a good, let me do my math, 13 years in my work life without ever being fired at all. Now, I look at it this way. If you're downsized from a job, if your position's eliminated, if the company goes out of business, that is not being fired. However, if they get rid of you and replace you with somebody else, well, you're canned. And as I've been saying every week, my thought was you stay at a job as long as you can, even if you hate it, till you move on to the next job. Well, 2001, I got to hear the words, "You're fired." Now, let me explain what was going on then. Move on to the next job. Well, 2001, I got to hear the words, "You're fired." Now, let me explain what was going on then. The last few weeks, I've told you about some of my disasters working in a call center. The call center, the one I got suspended from, I told you about, after 2 years, I quit because I got another job. Guess what I did? I took a job close to home in another freaking call center because I'm an idiot. The problem was, I took this job because they told me it was going to be completely different than what I went through. And then another big company bought it, and it was the same damn thing. But it was better than the other place I worked at. But. Things changed in my life a lot then. More importantly is I moved at the time to get closer to that call center. So instead of driving an hour to work, I was driving like 3 minutes. I lived in this little efficiency apartment, and then I got engaged to my now wife, Melissa. So a few months later, she's like, "Honey, You, me, and the cat we had then, and lucky enough to rent this huge house in Bucks County, PA. Bucks County, by the way, is in PA, but it's closer to central New Jersey than Philadelphia. So her job was literally next door, like mine was. My commute to work was taking anywhere between 60 and 80 minutes now, and with Philly traffic, forget it. So it was time for a hop along Bobby to find another job. I got an interview with a company in central Jersey, and we hit it off. I wasn't quite sure what the job was, but it had to do with customer service, working with clients, and it was not a call center job. Hooray! They told me this job would be completely different. I'll be talking directly to the clients, helping them fill out orders. You're not going to be in a queue. No one's going to time how long you're away from your desk. You're going to like it. I was offered the job, a few more grand in my salary, and a less commute to work, and my days at the call center would be over. Well, like everywhere, I take this job, they take me out to lunch, they wine and dine me, they're all excited to be there, they're training me, and I noticed within the second or third week, something seemed wrong. They never really explained to me what this job was, or maybe I was too much of an idiot to understand it. Now, it seemed like I would go online, fill out these papers, then go to the warehouse, give them the papers, then they would give me the job order, and I'd go back to the client and tell them the job order. It's kind of tedious, I know. Something didn't connect with me or with them, and I didn't understand it at all. It made no sense. So I spent my first month or there always in arguments because I didn't get it. Part of the problem was they spoke in codes. Like I would say, hey, so-and-so, I got the paperwork. Bob, no. You mean you got the R3121? Huh? 21. Whatever, I got I feel like I'm in office space, right? So they spoke in codes, which is hard to train me. Then a few weird things happened there. One day, an alarm goes off, like a fire drill alarm. So I assume we're having a fire drill. One of my managers called me over to her desk and goes, oh, I need you. I said, we're having a fire drill. Let's go outside. She goes, no. I gotta explain what this is. They're selling the company, and a potential owner is here. So when that alarm goes off, that signals all of us to look busy. And I'm not doing anything right now, so I want you and I to pretend we're having a conversation until the people walk by and pass. I thought she was joking. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, right? No, we need to do this. So we literally, like an acting job, had a fake conversation. And I didn't know the company was going out of business either. I would never taken the freaking job. So that was going on. They fired the guy behind me while I was at work because he was messing around and stuff. And then things took a really weird turn. This is before GPSs, by the way. My sense of direction is horrible. It's lucky I even find my way to the living room nowadays. So I would always print out maps and try the best route to get from Bucks County to this place in central Jersey. And I was always late a minute or two, and I couldn't stand it. So one day while I'm working, I'm on MapQuest looking for the best route. And one of the managers like, what are you doing? I said, I feel bad that I'm late every day. I'm going to find the best route to get me here. The next day, I go online. My internet is gone. I'm not saying it wasn't working. They went into my computer and got rid of the Internet Explorer. So I went over to somebody and said, something's wrong with my computer. They're like, no, we think you're too distracted, so we're only going to put up the stuff that you need for work. I was 31 years old at that point. Really? So, I'm continuing this job that makes absolutely no sense. And tragedy hits. Not just 9/11, that was before. Absolutely no sense. And tragedy hits. Not just 9/11, that was before this, but tragedy hits where my father passes away. He had been sick with cancer, and unfortunately he passed away. I called him to work one day. It was a Thursday or a Friday, I don't remember. I said, hey, here's what's going on. I'm not going to be here next week. Call me later, please. And they called. They could not have been nicer. I even told them, I said, look, I know I'm on probation. I've only been here a couple weeks. And I know I don't have any paid time off, so just pay me when, I'll work without pay, but I got to take care of some legal stuff here. They were like, no, we're going to pay you for this. That's not right. And I said to them, this is part of the reason maybe why my work's not that great. And they said, you know what? When you come back in a week, we're going to make this a whole new place for you. So it sounded positive, didn't it? I go in there, everyone's nice to me. It's really quiet, too. It's kind of eerie. And they're really, really nice to me. And they said in the office, you know what? We're going to get you new training. We're going to forget about the past. We're going to get you on track. Everything's going to be great. All right. So they trained me, and some of it starts to make sense. Now, I'm not happy still, and I started the job look again because I cannot stand this place, to be honest. It is crazy. But I wanted to stay there as long as I could. Money's coming in, and I didn't know what else to do. So the job starts getting hard again. No one's explaining to me how anything's going on. I'm, for something which I don't even understand. One of the clients complained that an order was off, even though I had sent the paperwork over to them and it didn't make any sense. So it never really panned out. So one day, I guess this is a week after I'd taken a week off, so a couple weeks after that, it's a Friday, a couple days before Thanksgiving, they call me in the office, "Hey Bob, why don't you come in here, please?" I said, "All right." Smile on my face, "What's going on, guys?" Guess what? HR is sitting there. And if HR is sitting there, as I'll say a million times, they're not breaking out a cake for you, my friend. So they're like, "Yeah, Bob, we've been giving this a lot of thought, and we just don't think this is a good fit for you." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, "Well, we're trying to train you, and you left Friday and something wasn't done, and we're going to terminate your employment as of now." And my heart sunk. I had never been fired from a job before. And I'm sort of like, "Are you kidding me?" They're like, "We're sorry." And I said, "I quit a job to come here. I wouldn't have come here." And they're like, "Well, sorry," real quiet. And I said, "And you told me," dead silence. So I said, "Well, can you at least give me a box to pick up my stuff?" So I'm walking back to my desk with my box and the embarrassment of everybody watching me pack up my desk. And I should have known because earlier that morning there was a private meeting a few feet from me, and when I walked by it got quiet. It was all people I worked with, so they knew. Everybody knew but me I was getting canned. So I'm walking to my desk and that idiot is like walking right behind me. And I say to him right in front of everybody, "I'm not a criminal. Give me some personal space, please." So I'm putting like my pictures and my personal in a box, and he is just standing there. So I didn't have a breakdown, but like I would go through my desk, paper clips, no, don't want them, put them on the floor. This thumbtacks, don't want to put them on the floor. So he walks me out, and I keep telling him, "Would you give me some personal space?" He sticks his hand out and goes, "Bob, I wish you the best." I looked at him and said, "I don't know how you sleep at night." Too. It was a bad situation, but it led on to better things in the long run. I was actually full-time out of work for a few years after that. But so yeah, there's my first experience of getting fired back in 2001. And we're going to find out with our guest here what it's like to be on the other side and have to tell somebody you're canned. You're listening to the Work With Me podcast on workwithmepodcast.com, 1023 HD2 KKNH, where classic rock lives, and tickradio.com. We're going to go to our interview next, but now a word from our sponsor. Hi, it's Bob Stei. Look, anxiety and stress overload is very real, as life as we know it has just been turned upside down. Worldwide pandemic has triggered a stress response that has us feeling like we are falling apart. This roller coaster doesn't seem to stop. If you're experiencing panic attacks and stress burnout, causing a rapid decline in your health and ability to cope, and you've tried reading the books, getting therapy, and adjusting your diet, and yet nothing stops the crushing panic and resulting fatigue, Divine Design with Alicia French can help. Through her own health and stress transformation and 6 years of experience as a functional nutrition practitioner, focused on neuro-emotional balancing, Elisa has helped hundreds of clients get their health and lives back. Call or text her today for a 60-minute consultation. 509-638-4329, 509-638-4329, and tell her Bob Stei sent you.
This is the Work With Me podcast at workwithmepodcast.com.
So Bob, I'm really excited to have on our Work With Me podcast today, TerryLynn Smith. And TerryLynn is the founder and owner of Giraffes Consulting. We're going to have her tell us why she came to that name because it's an incredible story. But the short end of it is that we've known TerryLynn for a long time now, and I've personally been able to witness her growth as a business coach and a life coach, and ultimately she landed as a career coach. So TerryLynn is in the business of helping executives, employees, and employees throughout the entire organization step into their own purpose, and also people who are looking for work or looking to maybe up-level their career to do one of the favorite things I love to hear her say and that is to find a career with a purpose and not just a paycheck. So TerryLynn, thank you so much for being with us today. We're really honored to have you on the Work With Me podcast.
Well, I am excited to be here. I always get excited when I talk about working with people and helping people. So I'm happy to be here, and it's great to see everybody.
Right. So TerryLynn,
I always get excited when I talk about working with people and helping people. So I'm happy to be here, and it's great to see everybody.
right. So TerryLynn, I want to take you back to your earlier days and what happened early in your life. What are some of the choices you made early in your life that have brought you to this point?
Well, when I go way back, it is kind of interesting how I got here. I kind of remembered somewhat how I got here, but I can see how all the pieces fit together. And there is a formula, whether we know the formula as we're going through it, there is a path that's created. So when I think about it, I was raised by parents in Rochester, New York. My dad was an Italian chief of a fire department, so he was in service. My mother was one of 8 children, and she was a matriarch of her family, and did a lot of work in the church. Lovely childhood, no complaints, lots of people around, lots of drama, lots of smiles, lots of Christmas presents. But then I was thinking about when I was in high school, and it was an odd time for me. I'm as tall as I am now, and wasn't the prettiest person in the world, but I got to be a cheerleader. And why was that? Because I was athletic and I was able to do the jumps, et cetera, et cetera. Plus, I was strong enough to hold those young, small gals up. So my father had a fit. Oh, a short skirt in a sweater, jumping around in front of all these people, not for my daughter. But somehow my mother was able to rationalize with my dad that it was a chance for me to be part of a group, and it's something that I could do, and I enjoyed doing it. And 30 years later, he gave me a high five, but it took that long. But in the end, being a cheerleader actually was the foundation of all of my, successes in any of the jobs that I've had. Because why? You'll notice as I talk about the jobs I've had, they were all working with people. So I think that is probably, people would like to think it was a college degree or something else. I think I added to this, cheerleading skill set, but I'm really about motivation and inspiration. And I think like motivation is about helping people focus and getting a goal, achieving a goal. Inspiration is like a lifetime behavior and thought process. But you need both of them in order to be successful and to move on and to be excited about life. So once I graduated high school, I decided that I wanted to go into nursing. Well, I spent a summer in the emergency room being a candy striper. That ended that. I went with blood, tears, sweat, and all that crying. So I went on and got my degree from the University of Rochester in dental hygiene. And I thought, well, this is another kind, it was a way to me. I was kind of pushing teaching off a little bit, although that was always in the back of my mind. And so I got my degree in dental hygiene, and off I went to a small town, Oswego, New York, and worked for a rural dentist. And that didn't work out so well. I could, I loved what I was doing, but I was doing all the talking. And, I like to talk, but when nobody's responding to you, that can be really boring. It's almost like, being a stand-up comedian today in this COVID issue, and you're speaking to an empty room. That's what it felt like. So that didn't last too long. And then I moved to Long Island and had an opportunity to be part of a Head Start program. So again, and I went on to Stony Brook and got my 4-year degree in health education. And through that, I had a chance to teach. And of course, then there was a little bump in that road too, because I went to school, graduated in 74, and no longer was sex education and health education in the school system the way I had been trained. Mostly I was in sex and drug education, because at the time in 74, that was a big, huge issue that communities were dealing with. So there was no jobs for me to go to, although I did really well in student teaching and I actually really liked it. And then I went on to, because they knew there was a possibility, Stony Brook really took care of us. And they also gave us a dual degree in organization, outplace and organization. So we would go out and organize communities on health-related issues. So, okay, that was filed in organized communities on health-related issues. So, okay, that was fine and dandy. But then, of course, I got into running and I decided, oh boy, I'm going to be a marathoner. With these long legs, I had a good shot at it. No short distance, no medals, but I felt good running. It got me into fitness. And so then I ran a fitness center, and then I got with a company who developed fitness centers and ran them. So again, I'm still working with people, but that was exciting. And it was through that opportunity that one of my clients who ran a healthcare company saw me and wanted me to come work for them. Where? In HR. And he thought, I had no background in HR, though I was a teacher. I worked with people. He didn't really care about that. He just liked the energy that I had and thought that I would be a good a good addition to the HR department. And that's where I spent 30 years of for the employee. We are there for the employee. The employee is the client, if you will. And we need to be there to support them, to hear them, to appreciate them, and to help them develop and grow. So I really love that job. And we did a lot of great things. We managed to volunteer as a corporation and being one of those corporate good citizens roles that corporations today really take pride in. We did a lot of talent development. So I watched people grow. And when they would leave my department or grow into another department, they were, oh, I'm so sorry I'm leaving. And I was so excited because that was a compliment that they moved on past me. So all of that was pretty exciting. And, and I was also responsible for several layoffs. And one of the things in being in charge of a layoff is certainly a heartbreaking thing. You can certainly lose night sleeps over that. But I was really in being in charge of a layoff is certainly a heartbreaking thing. You can certainly lose night sleeps over that. But I was really proud of the team that I worked with because we really came up with a process that was very respectful and also supportive in the efforts to help the employees who were laid off to move forward, to not be a victim, but to have a pathway to follow. And so as you can see, some of these things that I was doing even in HR are things that I'm doing today. And of course, our company merged with another, didn't need two VPs. So I'm looking around and saying, I'm not sure politically I've got this. So I said to myself, okay, what else would I like to do? I'm 68 years old. I knew I probably wasn't going to get another VP HR position. So I thought, well, what do I like doing? And what do I want to do? And what am I good at, by the way? And who needs me? Coaching. I've been coaching people all my life in one way or another. So off to Georgetown I went and got my certificate in coaching, my ICF certificate, and opened my own shop. And there we go from there. And once I opened my shop, I thought, well, I'll be a life coach. Well, when I look back, and Loretta, you've always encouraged me to do this, take an assessment. How are you doing? 90% of the people I was doing work with were unemployed or bored in their career and looking to reinvent, or recent college graduates. So I narrowed my niche, and that's how I got to be a career coach. So as you can see, it was a journey, but it was all seemed like it had been a little S-curve in there or two, but it was really all in the right direction. I hope that answered that question. I'm not even sure now what the question was.
Amazing, TerryLynn. So in this path, you eventually discovered that college students have been an important target marker for you because you're finding that college education doesn't really prepare them necessarily to enter the job force. And I just want to say you're absolutely correct that college education doesn't always ensure that the skills that they're actually going to be asked to do on a day-to-day basis, there tends to be a gap. So tell us how you're helping college students make sure that that education that they receive, they're going to actually be able to put to work, and that they're actually going to be able to do the tasks that the employer is asking them to do, in that regard.
Sure. Recent college graduates do have that thinking that somebody's going to knock on their front door and say, I hear you just graduated and you have a degree. Here's a job for you. Doesn't really work that. Do have that thinking that somebody's going to knock on their front door and say, I hear you just graduated and you have a degree. Here's a job for you. Doesn't really work that way. And when I've had a great opportunity, because I knew that colleges weren't preparing students for that transition into the workforce. I'm not saying that it wasn't on their mind, they weren't thinking about it, their focus wasn't totally on it. Yes, they have, career development centers and that, but that takes the initiative from the student to really get involved with that. And they do help with resumes, et cetera, et cetera. But I needed the students, when I started working with them, to think about, well, what else did they do while they were in college? The degree is great. Having a college experience tells an employer that you are self-directed, that you can meet deadlines, that you're results oriented. But what did you do? How can I get them to think about transferable skills? Have done it before, therefore can do it again for them, that you have that added value. So I found that if I started asking the students, well, what did they do? Were they part of a newspaper? Were they part of a committee? What other activities were they doing in college where they may have had a leadership role? They needed to work as a team. They maybe had to do some strategic planning. So I wanted them to really start to think about what other activities have they done that would demonstrate these transferable skills that usually are the basics for almost any job that you're going out to, in addition to the requirement of having a college degree. Now, some of them absolutely had done work at home. Work during the summer. Some of them had some kind of student impact studies. Some of them had opportunities to work for other corporations. Some of them had opportunities to work for other corporations just to go in as, what is the word I'm looking for? Intern. And so they had some of that, but not most of them. So that was kind of a challenge. And of course, then I was working with some, but that wasn't my whole focus. And I wanted to do more. Colleges weren't so excited for me to jump in with all this enthusiasm and say, hey, I can help you. It was talk to the hand. We already do it. Talk to the hand. We don't have the budget for it. And so I discovered through my BNI group, that's a networking organization, that there was a company called Braven. And Braven is a nonprofit organization that has a 15-week college course that they get credit for. And what's it all about? Helping the students transition into the workplace. Not only making sure that they're getting experience in these types of skills that are transferable, but they know part of my volunteering. Volunteering is really the heart of really what I do and love to do. And so I was very excited working with that group as well. And I could see the difference. I had a cohort, a group of 8, and they had to do a capstone project, which means they had to learn to work together. They had to solve a problem. There was a lot of, critical thinking, and they had to document everything that they did and why they did it. So that was exciting. And from that, I've also now, and I'm currently being a mentor for recent college graduates out of the Braven program and helping them find a new job. Or find a job. So it's been really exciting, and I can see exactly and watch people grow. So I've been able to apply what I think would be a solution to a problem that I understood. Takes a little while, and really it needs to be one-on-one. So I'm thinking too, that my mentoring has given them even more of an opportunity, because I'm not talking to 8 people or 10 people, I'm talking to you. And talking to them directly, we're personalizing it and really identifying it. And so, you get pretty excited. Then I get excited, and it doesn't take much to get me excited. And next thing you know, the student is feeling confident. They've now figured out what they're good at, what they like doing, and they have experience in doing it. So they can market themselves. They can demonstrate it. One of the key things in the systems that came out of this is the PAR formula. And it's been used many, many different places, especially when writing a resume. But that talks about, what's the problem? What action did you take? What were the results? So when you're writing a resume and you actually, instead of saying I was a leader for 5 people, you actually talk about what did that team do? What did you do? And what was the result? This gives the employer such a better picture and helps them connect the dots that in fact, you could do the job. So now you become an ideal candidate and you move forward, whether you're a student or not, whether you're unemployed or whether you're looking to reinvent your career. So that PAR formula was something that I learned again in Braven, and I certainly use it all the time now. And people get really confident when they have to write a PAR statement. It reminds them, hey, I'm pretty good. I should be an ideal candidate. Here's what I can do for you. And when the client feels that they're bringing added value to the company, that really tops off their marketing of themselves and really gives themselves a really good shot.
It really is mission critical, TerryLynn, that you go from book learning to actual practical tactical tools. We see this in marketing a lot, but it also applies to other fields of accounting, engineering, and so forth as well. That book education will take you so far, and then applying that education to real life is really mission critical. So I think that also making sure that college students, while they're in college, and that they're getting practical, tactical experience where they're able to take that book learning and actually put it to practical use. Because at the end of the day, what you just talked about in your PAR formula is what's the problem, what are the action, what are the results? And this is one of the things that we don't very often think about, especially younger in our lives, how important those results are. You get paid a paycheck because you bring results, not because you just showed up. So I'm so glad that TerryLynn, you're out there in force helping showed up. So I'm so glad that TerryLynn, you're out there in force helping college students understand that, because when they learn it very early on, it's a skill that travels with them throughout their entire career. And that's what makes them promotable. That's what makes them be able to elevate again and again and again. It's the results that you get paid for. Even if you're an hourly employee, you get paid for the results that you bring. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob, and we're going to talk about some of the messiness somewhat of being in HR. So Bob, I'm going to go ahead and have you take it away for a while.
Thank you. And you're with TerryLynn Smith on the Work With Me podcast on workwithmepodcast.com. Also on 102.3 HD2, KKNH, where classic rock lives, and tickradio.com. I'm really excited to have you here because for those of you who listen to the podcast every week, we have a great interview the second half. And yes, the first half is usually me babbling about some of the odd things you've witnessed during your years in HR. Did you ever have to deal with anyone who got fired on the first day of work?
No, I never did. I believe that, the way we did face-to-face onboarding before they started the job helped them to really understand what they'd gotten themselves into. And so they didn't show up. Now, some of them didn't show up and didn't tell us. That's always a nice surprise. And then you're starting all over again. But no one did I have to fire, thank heavens, on the first day. And even in terminations, and I know that you probably want to ask me a little bit about, when you terminate somebody, how did they behave? Really, in a good HR department, what you really need to have is a performance methodology. And so when an employee is not really, if they're just showing up to get a paycheck, they're not engaged, they're not giving, they're not participating, you really need to, and this is where leadership, they're not engaged, they're not giving, they're not participating. You really need to, and this is where leadership comes in, you really need to let that employee know what's working, what's not working, and not just once a year in the performance review, but as you see a negative behavior building. And at that point, you make sure that the employee is aware of it. You're there to support them, suggest what they need to do to change, and then it's up to the employee. So anytime I had to terminate somebody, or guide, a management or a VP to terminate someone in their department, it really was not ever a surprise. If it is a surprise, then we weren't doing something right. But the employee had every opportunity to make the changes, whether they wanted to or could do or whatever. There was a platform for them to have discussion around it and make a choice. I have to say, many times when people were on, I guess what we call a PIP, performance improvement plan, willing to do the job, or they really didn't feel they could do the job. So in essence, they had a little bit of time while still getting a paycheck to look for something else. So I always was very firm on the fact that all of the employees had the right to know when they're doing a great job and when they're not, and then how could they improve? Did many of them improve? Absolutely. But there were some who didn't want to, and moved on. So I always think that if I'm terminating somebody, it should not be a surprise. And, and the discussion, and they always want to tell you the sad stories, really need to make sure it's a clean discussion, conversation. It's not an opportunity to, do the 2-minute warning and, the Hail Mary. We don't have time for that. So you have to be really congruent in the fact that this person no longer is of value or an asset to the company. We don't have time for that. So you have to be really congruent in the fact that this person no longer is of value or an asset to the company, and probably not to themselves either. Can't tell you the number of times when people left mad, slamming things, crying, whatever they were doing, because they're really mad at themselves. But I would get a call, 3 months later or whatever, they found something else. They were thrilled to death, and they thanked me for terminating them because now they were really doing something they wanted to do. So sometimes we get in our comfort zone, and the comfort zone doesn't, you're comfortable, but you're not challenged, you're not engaged, and you get bored. And next thing you know, you're just showing up.
Now, I've always had a running joke at work. If you're ever called in the meeting and your manager there and HR is sitting there as well, they're not breaking out a birthday cake. So it's a situation we've all been involved with. What was, you brought up how you saw people slam and cry and get angry. What actually ever witnessed when you had to dismiss somebody, or something that a manager would have told you that this person did?
They took their arm, they stood up from the chair, obviously, usually it's in front of a desk. Normally, I would really prefer they do it in a conference room because it's less, for this reason, I'm going to tell you. And they took their arm and they wiped that entire desk onto the floor as they were heading for the door. And that's a little frightening to be part of something like that, or be on the other side of the desk when that's happening. And so I would say, to me, that's the worst. I've had cries and tears and fists on the desk and stuff, but that to me was over the top.
Well, I never did that one before. That sounds like, that's horrible. That's horrible. Speaking of that matter, think back. All the times you either had to dismiss somebody or your manager asked your advice, what was one of the oddest or just the most bizarre to dismiss somebody or your manager asked your advice? What was one of the oddest or just the most bizarre reasons you had to let somebody go?
That's a really difficult one, because any reason that they would have to be let go because of our process before wasn't really a surprise. But perhaps the one that is most glaring is when they just stopped showing up for work. I didn't really let them go yet, but they stopped showing up for work, and no notice, nothing. So there was a few paychecks that went through the payroll department because, we weren't sure what they were doing. And that to me was pretty odd that they didn't have the courage to say, look, I'm done. I'm not going to do it anymore. Or if I don't come in, you can't fire me. May have been their methodology. But that to me was the weirdest thing.
Over and over today.
Well, I think the resume is when they don't take the time to digest the job description, find out exactly, understand exactly what that job does, what you'll be expected to do. Because most people think, okay, I'm going to write a resume. And it is probably one of the most painful experiences, time-consuming experiences you can have, is write a resume. And then they'll write a cover letter, equally as challenging, but they're done. Okay, I got a cover letter and I got a resume. I'm going to send it out to 500 people. It doesn't quite work that way. You really need to edit. It's great to have a template of both of those, but you really have to edit your resume and the cover letter to fit and demonstrate that you can do that job, that you have done that job, that you have the talent or the experience or the knowledge to do that job. And I think that's where people, that you have the talent or the experience or the knowledge to do that job. And I think that's where people, when I say to clients and to my students, well, we're going to have to edit that, their eyeballs get so big and, I can't do that again. But it's an edit. It's not a rewrite. We're not starting from zero. But that's where I find that they're just sending out the same thing. And it's not tailored or customized. And therefore, it says to the person reading it, the recruiter, the hiring manager, they didn't put a lot of effort into this. How much do they want the job?
Now let's talk a little bit about interviews, something else I'd love to talk about on this program. What are some big mistakes people make today when they go on that initial job interview?
They don't prepare. They need to really sit down, whether it's on Zoom like we're all doing now or face-to-face with a friend or whatever, and practice the interview. Take the job description. This is like make questions out of the duties and responsibilities in that job description. And then, have your friend, whatever, ask you those questions and then answer those questions. We always think when we're preparing for an interview, well, if they ask me this, I'll think of this, I'll say this, I'll do that. Well, when they finally get asked that question in real time, they blah, 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 and they stumble along and then get nervous, then get frustrated and not really give a good, real picture of themselves. I notice that when anyone actually practices the interview, even if the question is not the questions they were asked, they have a thought about it. They understand, how to put some experience together, how to make it energetic, how to make it concise. Let's not lose the interviewer in a conversation trying to answer the question. Excuse me. So when you do practice, you get to streamline things. You get to figure out what works and what doesn't work. One of the things I really ask everybody to do is to keep a story file. And because people like to hear stories, and stories are just examples of what you've done before related to that job that you can do again. And when they have those stories, it's like a Chinese menu. Pick from one from A, one from column B, and now you've got your response. So when they prepare, they're better able to really nail it. The other thing that I really want all my clients to do, my students, everybody else, pick 5 things you want that employer, that interviewer, that recruiter to know about you that's important for success in that job. And so as you go through the interview, you're going to be able to determine whether you've made them know what you think they need to know in order to choose you. At the end of the interview, if you haven't quite made all the statements yet, you have a chance when they say, is there anything else you'd like us to know? And you say, yes, there's yet. You have a chance when they say, is there anything else you'd like us to know? And you say, yes, there's one other thing you need to know about me. And then put it out there because you know what it is you want to tell them. And at the end, you walk out of that interview and you say, you know what? I did the best job I could. And now it's up to them. And that's what being prepared for an interview will do for you, is to give you that sense of confidence, clarity, energy, which all these things are exactly what interviewers, decision makers want to hear, because they're trying also to see if you're going to fit in the culture of that company. And so it's more than just what you have done and can do, but who you are. How do you behave in the world? So those are the things. I think the biggest mistake is people don't prepare. They've got all the tools they need, and they don't take the time to do that. Now with being on Zoom and everything else now, they really need to get comfortable with that. Get the picture and things of that sort. How do they dress? Equally still as important. How did you dress? What does your background look like? And be able to kind of prepare for an interview as if it were in person. So these are some of the things that you really want to do, and you can only do that by practicing and doing it wrong. The other thing is right now that I would say to people when they're doing an interview, especially over Zoom, before you get started, tell the interviewer what your plan is should you lose connection. And you can say, just in case, that I lose my internet, here's my plan. I'm going to text you at this number. Most interviewers are not yet thinking about that. So when you lose the connection, everything goes haywire. But if you made a plan before, now they'll say, don't text that number, text this number. Good. Now you're on to the interview. The interviewee feels a little bit more in control because we can't control the internet. And text this number. Good. Now you're on to the interview. The interviewee feels a little bit more in control because we can't control the internet. And they've got a plan. I always think with a little bit of courage in the plan, you can be successful no matter what you do. So that would be the other thing that I would tell people who are interviewing today is to be prepared.
One more question I have in the whole interviewing process. Here we are, we're living in the 2020, we're living in the Zoom years and everything. What are big no-nos when it comes to how you dress for whether it be a Zoom or a face-to-face interview nowadays, regardless of the job?
What you need to do is dress in professional attire and feel very comfortable, very confident in what you have on. Now, of course, we're only seeing on the Zooms of today, from, kind of a little of the chest up. But however, you still need to go. It's like about being dressed for an interview that sets you up. Put your courage up front, get your confidence up. And, you're sitting straighter and you're anxious to present yourself. So I think that is a key thing to be able to do is to really dress. It's not really for them, quite frankly, it's really for you. And so doing this type of an interview, you need to dress appropriately. And today we're a little bit more lax. We're not necessarily everybody in a suit and a tie or women in a suit and a nice blouse and that, but we're still really to be prepared to be seen.
Thank you, TerryLynn. So it really does come down to courage, plan, and also tenacity, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And it's stick-to-itiveness. And so I would like you to share a story. I know the story about how perseverance and stick-to-itiveness actually helped you win a contest against all odds. I would love for you to share that story because it's so inspiring and it just shows that we're never so tenured that we can't take on new challenges in our lives and win big. So will you please share that story? It's one of my favorite ones.
Absolutely. Of course, thank you for the opportunity to share it. I am blushing a little bit, but nobody can see that. During the years that I was in human resources, because of my background in running fitness centers, the corporation built their own gym for their employees. And so, of course, added to the center, you really want to make it a community. You want people to get involved. You want them to show up on a regular basis so that they can get the benefits from fitness and from working out. We all know that when we work out in any form or fashion, it tends to be a stress reliever. And you're meeting people. I'll tell you, a lot of business got done in the gym because everybody was in the same shorts and shirts, but they were talking, but they were in a neutral area. And so they had better conversations than when they were upstairs, kind of in the boardroom. But what I needed to do, and we always ran different contests, throughout the year, again, to bring people together to either through teams or individual activity. So this one probably was our second year of operations. My staff decided that we should have a plank off and we wanted people to get involved with it. And the plank is, it doesn't look like it's very difficult, but you're on your elbows and on your toes and you're keeping a straight back. Very difficult, but you're on your elbows and on your toes and you're keeping a straight back and you're holding it, right? So we decided, and then I said, listen, I'm too old to be doing all this sort of stuff. And I didn't want to embarrass myself and I didn't want to come out of my comfort zone. But now I had been in fitness and I was a regular down there, so I should be able to do it. So they talked me into at least trying to do it, at least get involved, get the cheerleader in me out there, getting everybody else to, look, I'm doing it, you should do it. Well, I got into it all right. Then I started to, that little competitive spirit is pretty big in me. And we started having these plank offs. And I kept winning the round that I got into. And then I was the oldest member of the gym, and I was a woman. And then I got to feel responsible for all the other women in the fitness center of all ages. So now I'm really practicing at home, and it's based on core muscles. It actually works all the muscles in your body. And so it came down to the last two people who were, in the end, me and the gentleman who was 35 years old. So now, and of course, now everybody is down there in the fitness center watching this all happen. So I'm like thinking, oh my God, I've done a good amount of, 10-minute ones. I actually did a 15-minute one. I thought, could hardly get up after that, but nonetheless, I'd done that. So I was ready, and a little nervous that he was half my age. But anyway, we got started, and 20 minutes and 41 seconds later, I was the winner. So it was my one athletic achievement in my whole life. I got a plaque for it. I'm on the plaque wall in the fitness center to this day. My one athletic achievement in my whole life. I got a plaque for it. I'm on the plaque wall in the fitness center to this day. And no one has come near that amount of time in a plank. But I did notice in recent news that this gentleman, this Marine, has held a plank for 8 hours and some odd. Hats off to him. 20 minutes was enough for me. But it was an exciting thing. But, being the VP of HR and being with people and people seeing me as a kind of a little abnormal but normal person, it really added to my capital as the VP of HR. So there were a lot of great things that came out of it. And it's something, quite frankly, I am proud of.
You absolutely should be proud of that. 20
Wow.
minutes, 41 seconds, TerryLynn. Wow. It's been such a delight to have you on our Work With Me podcast today. So we're going to have a little bit of fun now. Bob's going to take us into a segment about being on a stranded island. So we're going to have Bob take us into that section.
All right. Now, on this island, there's nobody from HR telling you what to do, and there's no trainer telling you what to do. So you can do whatever you want. And we are with TerryLynn Smith, HR and coach guru here on the Work With Me podcast and workwithmepodcast.com, 1023 HD2, KKNH, where classic rock lives, and tickradio.com. So you're on this stranded island, and you can have one food or one type of cuisine. What's it going to be?
Nachos and a margarita.
Whew, she is ready. What about one book to read over and over?
Think Like a Monk. It's by Jay Shatterly, and it's relatively new, but it's an opportunity to find peace. It's an opportunity to find purpose and focus. And I really think if I were on a stranded island all by myself, those types of I really think if I were on a stranded island all by myself, those types of exercises and understanding would certainly help me to, not run out and drown myself.
What about one movie to watch over and over?
That's West Side Story. First movie I ever saw. It's a love story, but it's also about social justice and equality. I can't wait for the remake to come out.
One TV show or one TV series?
This Is Us. I kind of like all the little drama that I'm not part of. And I'm here for them all.
And one musician or group to listen to over and over?
Blake Shelton. I love storytelling, and when it's done to music, country music does that for me. Some other music types, I certainly like classical music as well, and I like lots of music, but I've only had one, taking Blake with me. Consulting.com, and they can call me, 646-320-1126.
It has been our absolute pleasure having you with us today. Thank you so much for being on the Work With Me podcast.
Oh, this is a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, TerryLynn. You quoted my favorite show, This Is Us. And the music composer, Siddhartha Khosla, is actually a friend of mine. And interesting story about him is that, and I think you'll appreciate this, is that he actually has written theme songs for each of the characters in that show. So the next time you watch that, pay attention and see if you can see that when the new character's coming in or there's a pivotal moment, their theme song plays. And I think that's such a brilliant way to handle that music composition. And he's originally from New Jersey. He lives in LA now, so he's an East Coast guy. And he's originally from New Jersey. He lives in LA now, so he's an East Coast guy. And another great thing, you're such an advocate for people, and one of the things that he's done is made a commitment. You're talking about social justice and things. He's made a commitment that to ask for budget in every project he does going forward where live musicians have an opportunity to play. So this really takes it to another level, doesn't it? And I think you're such a great advocate for this, that when I have an opportunity to step up, I bring people with me, and that mentorship and that commitment is something that really sets you apart. And any college student, any executive who wants to up-level their career or feel more enriched in the work that they're currently doing would greatly benefit by having TerryLynn Smith as your career coach. So thank you so much, TerryLynn. It's been our pleasure to have you today.
Oh, mine too. And thank you for that tip on This Is Us. I'm going to really pay attention. I'm always
Stei. If you have a comment, would like to advertise, be a guest or an affiliate of the Work With Me podcast, email bob@ruseadvisors.com. Copyright 2020 Ruse Advisors.